Hey, welcome. I hope we are TVC Live. We have a little rocky start, but that's okay.
Yes, that's okay.
That's okay. That's the way it is in the live business.
That's right. And Larry, no, we're not in the laundry room. Today
No.
we're in the office.
Yeah, the good folks over at the Du Bois KOA have let us use the office here. So in theory, we're going to have better Wi-Fi. We shall see, because I'm not too optimistic at the moment.
But we're feeling good.
That's right.
We're gonna. This is gonna work. We'll just know it is.
Fight through it one way or the other.
So hello everybody. Hi Liz. Hi Mom. Hi the Macy's. Hi Joanne. Hi everybody. Oh Barbara. Hello. Nice to see you.
Yeah.
So,
thanks for popping on.
Yeah, we love it. I know the scenery here is a little green.
Yeah. It's beautiful here in
The
Wyoming.
KOA office.
Yeah.
Outside it's beautiful.
Yeah,
It's been
yeah,
rainy all day, but now the sun looks like it's coming out.
We should try one of these outside next time.
You think that would work?
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. All right. Well, we have a lot to talk about today. So
we have some interesting guests today.
yeah.
They're okay. They're okay.
Yeah. Well, I don't know how we booked these guests. It's incredible.
It's incredible. It was hard to get them.
No, our budget. Just to say, our budget is huge.
Or we could also say that we had a conflict of interest with the original, and we moved y'all up since we told everybody this was for 2 weeks from now. So or next week. So yes. Y'all got moved up. Luckily, you were free. You and David were free, and we were able to schedule you in.
Yeah, well, it's not that we don't have anything else to do.
No, well, you were going to be here already, and thank God David was available.
That's right.
Because me just talking to you the whole time about photography might have gotten old.
We would have made it work.
Of course.
Well, we're glad you are here. So thanks for being here. And we've got David Downs waiting in the wings. So we're going to talk a little bit photography, beginner tips. He's my business partner in the little side hustle, Bitten Downs Photography. We do workshops around the country. And we've got a few coming up. And we're also putting together an e-course on beginner photography tips. And so hopefully we'll launch that later this year.
Yes, hopefully so.
Yeah.
Yes.
So in the meantime, we're going to give you some tips tonight. Talk about travel photography. We'll talk about, we'll look in the chat to see if anyone has any specific questions about photography.
Ask hard questions.
Ask really hard questions. Like ask David, what is an f-stop? Why in the world did they call it an f-stop, for crying out loud? That's what I want you to ask him. So just whatever photography questions you have. If we don't know the answers, we will make them up. So you're not going to know the difference, really. So it'll be fine.
Somebody might be able to call you on it. Larry could probably call you on some of them. So
well, hopefully Larry's not listening.
Yeah, he is. He already has
Dr.
checked in.
Reverend Larry.
Yes.
Yeah, hopefully he's not here.
So hopefully you guys got to see a little bit. We kind of fast forwarded since we were running late the opening show, but I just wanted to call out. We have some new music.
Oh, yeah. A friend of our son's, Trevor, has a Spotify account.
He makes music.
Yeah, if you search for Leaf Beach, then you'll find Trevor's music. It's all really cool, hip stuff, a lot cooler and hipper than we are, but he had a track.
Makes it seem like we are.
He had a track that he hadn't given to his recording, what do they call it? Recording studio, whatever. So,
I don't know, do they still call it that?
I don't know what they call it these days. But anyway, it's not under license, so he let us use it. So thank you, Trevor. That was awesome. Hope you enjoyed that.
Yes.
You'll get to listen to more of it next time, hopefully.
Yes. You'll hear it more.
That's right.
Exactly. All right. Got a lot to talk about.
Yeah,
we got a game at the end that I'm going to try to stump the two of you. So let's go. Let's get on with this.
Yes. Before we do that, we've got two things.
Okay.
One is we started a series called What did we see this week? What was it called? What? I don't know.
What did we see this week?
What? Yeah. What? I don't know what it was called. Something about what we saw this week. So we have something for you.
What we saw this week. That was what we originally saw. The grouse.
Yes.
Hey, Johnny, you are late, but good to see you.
All right, what we saw this week, and technically this wasn't this week. Technically this was a couple of weeks ago. We were driving through and actually staying at a Harvest Host. And we went out to dinner, And this vehicle was parked outside the restaurant, and it just kind of blew us away. And then
we thought about running out to get a better look, and they left before we were able to get out of the restaurant.
They were driving away, and so we thought, oh, bummer, we'll never see this vehicle again in our life. So we drove over to the Harvest Host after dinner, and lo and behold, it was there.
It was.
And so went over and met the owner and had a nice chat. And they just built this trailer. They are full-timers, and this is custom built from the trailer up. And it was the coolest rig I have seen.
It's more like a little tiny home.
Yeah, it was a tiny
rig,
home,
I would call it. I don't know what the technical difference is between a tiny home and an RV, but this had some really cool features, including a porch that slides out and those glass windows all open. But hopefully we'll have them on the show at some point. He can give us a little bit of more information about it, because I just thought that was really kind of cool. Yeah. And he's already reached out to us and joined the virtual campground. So hopefully he'll see this at some point that we showed his tiny home.
That's right. Yeah, Johnny Lightning. That is not aerodynamic at all, and it looked like it's 100 feet long. So I don't know where they're going to be able to stay, but it looked really cool. There's a really
this was their first week. Us seeing it, this was their first week on the road.
That's amazing. Mm-hmm. And the videos on their website are pretty cool.
Their plan is to stay 1 month in every state.
1 month in every state.
The lower 48.
And in the one campground that will be able to hold them.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
All right. So, that was what we saw this week, or something like that. All right. Now we have Debra's news. Please welcome Debra for Debra's news.
David's laughing. I agree. I know David. He plays too much with these things.
I love the production value.
Yeah, the production value, exactly. All right, so that is a picture of our rig, but I am showing you just to show you a rig and letting you know that in case you have seen recently, there's been some Facebook posts about that if you share a post, one lucky winner will win a 2020.
I've shared a ton of those.
Oh dear. Don't do it. If you see this on Facebook, it's saying that you could have the possibility of winning a Tiffin or a Jayco or something. Don't fall for it. It's they've been contacted. Snopes and other people have contacted those manufacturers, and they are not participating with anything like this. And yes, this is a scam. So don't play along. Also, in RV news is the fact that there was recently a survey. I think we talked a little bit about a survey, and it says that 46 million Americans, that's 46 million Americans, and if my math is right, David will check me, about 12%, I think that is, of Americans, plan to travel by RV in the next 12 months.
Holy smokes. Book your reservations now.
Yes, it seems like a lot of people. The interesting thing in the survey was that a lot of the interest came from the 18 to 34-year-old group.
The youngsters.
And some 20% said it was related to COVID, but other people just said they wanted to get out. 11% said they were planning to buy, and 13% they were planning to rent. So we shall see lots more rentals. I know we already have seen a lot more rentals on the road and in the campgrounds that we've been in.
Yeah, a lot of those, I can't remember what they're called, but the ones that are all, obviously
Cruise
rental
America,
vehicle, Cruise America, whatever. Yeah, we've seen a lot of those in the campgrounds.
Those really decorated ones. And perhaps the reason that this interest is higher, besides COVID, is because Go RVing has started a new advertising campaign. So they have pushed out this new campaign. You'll start seeing these in their social media streams and things, and I guess they'll put them ads in magazines, but they very specifically are trying to gear their ads towards millennials as well. But it is this idea of you don't just need a vacation, you need an RV, or it's your house, you can make your own rules. So really showing people how this is the new way to do travel and to get out and go see America. And they're just in the past, since mid-May, their traffic to their sites have increased 107%. Wow. Go RVing is a coalition of manufacturers, campgrounds, etc., that help people to know that they want to get out and camp.
Cool.
Yeah, very fun. So, and then this was just kind of fun. This is a 103-year-old woman.
103 drinking a Bud Light.
She recovered from coronavirus. She wasn't expected to, and she did recover from the COVID, and the nurses said, well, here you go, have a Bud Light. Apparently this is her favorite beverage, and she hadn't gotten to have one in a long time, so she thought she would enjoy a Bud Light.
Should have given her a Corona.
I know. No, that's terrible. Terrible. So, any rate, and then also I thought this was kind of fun. This in Key West, they wanted to celebrate graduation. As we all know, a lot of the graduation ceremonies this year were canceled because of the COVID.
Yep.
Hashtag COVID. And but this was kind of fun. They did it by jet ski. The kids all put on their helmets and their vests, and they went around, and that's the principal there at the edge of that boat, handing out their diplomas, and the kids would go by in their own jet skis. So that's pretty fun.
I watched this video. That they were the kids were all wearing their masks, and they were being very responsible and
very socially distant. You can't really get much more socially distant than on a jet ski, I guess.
No.
That's
so
pretty much.
If you want to see this video, not right now, but after the show, go do a YouTube search for
jet ski graduation. And you'll find
search the World Wide Web for jet ski graduation. You'll see it. It's cool stuff.
Yes, Larry, we have also seen that RV makers are swamped with new orders, and rentals are up 650%, I think I saw.
Oh,
and
crazy.
No, we have not changed Big Al's name since last week. Barry has not made me have to change her name yet.
No.
We'll see.
Still thinking about it.
She might be called Tiger now. Okay, speaking of graduations, in our own personal good news, our oldest son, Drew, just graduated from DU. Thus, we're wearing the burgundy. We're being supporters of DU for the last time. They've gotten the last check from us that they're going to get. But congratulations to Drew. He has now graduated with a degree, a bachelor's in computer engineering, and he is moving on to University of Glasgow, hopefully, all things being good, to get his master's next year. So we are very proud of him and appreciate everybody's congratulations.
They had a really cool impromptu ceremony. All the kids got together and with some of the parents and planned a backyard ceremony. They had a young lady that had graduated a semester before come back year before, and she came back, and she was a great MC for the ceremony and gave a nice little commencement speech, and it was super cute.
It was very personal.
And, very personal and a lot
and
of fun.
The good news was we only had to sit through about 15 kids.
Yeah, it was so much better.
It was so much better.
And some of the kids were in a band, so they got their instruments out and started jamming. It was a lot of fun.
It was a lot of fun. So. And it was really strange to be back in a college campus at a college party. It's been since I've been at a college
Brought back
party.
a lot of memories, I can tell you that.
Yes, well, memories that I could sort of remember. Yes, exactly.
Yeah, I assume I had memories, yes.
Yes, we remember sort of having memories like that. But anyway,
so
and also the other piece of news I wanted to make sure to share with everybody, Sunday, Father's Day.
Holy smokes, is it really?
Yeah, and you know what that means?
What's that?
What follows right after Father's Day?
My birthday?
Yes.
Yes.
So
all right.
Father's Day to his birthday. Those are his week.
Those are my week.
It's 4 days that he gets for the year.
Right.
This year it's only 4 days. Yeah, no breakfast in bed. I don't know. When the boys show up, they can give you breakfast in bed. You're not my father.
Maybe triangle-shaped French toast or something like that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly. So don't forget your father this Sunday.
Yeah. Happy Father's Day to all the fathers out there. And
that's right.
All that.
That's right.
And happy birthday to me. Okay. Well, should we move on with the
We should
show?
always move on.
Or should we just keep talking?
No, let's move
All
on.
right.
So I'm going to introduce our two guests.
Oh, good. Wasn't expecting that.
I know you weren't.
Let's see how this goes.
Yes. So we are very honored to have on tonight two very talented photographers. One has been professionally a photographer for many, many years, since basically high school, really. Yes. Picked up a camera in high school.
1985.
Won your first award, right, at the Denham Springs newspaper.
Denham Springs newspaper.
For a picture, yeah. So Barry Benton has been a photographer and has been my personal photographer for a long time now. Not that I get that many pictures, but I have.
Whoa. Let me show you the pictures. We got
lots
of pictures.
There's not a lot of pictures of people. So at any rate, and then we also have David Downs coming on. And David and Barry started a business together. David is a very talented artist and photographer. So where I would think you think mostly about photography, David thinks a little bit more about art. And so that makes y'all a really great combination with teaching other people how to do photography. And David's a great guy too. He's just really nice. So let's bring on David.
Yay, David. Oh,
Hi,
man, I keep
David.
forgetting about the applause. Hold on. Let's get the suitable applause. There we go. Welcome, David.
That's not enough.
Let me turn up this volume a little bit. Let's make sure. Can you
There
hear
we
us
go.
okay?
Yeah, a few more people. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you. Perfect. How are you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Thanks for coming on with us.
Absolutely. It's fun. It's fun mainly just to get to watch you two interact together. You hit the road, 2-3 years ago, however long it's been. And so the chances to see you guys together and I mean, that's the main reason I partnered with you, Barry, was to get to talk to Debra. And now it never happens anymore. So.
Smart man.
Now
Smart
the truth
man.
comes out.
Smart man. Yeah.
Cool.
So what's our approach here tonight? What are we
Well,
gonna do?
yeah. So we've got some things to talk about, but Debra has a.
He's going to take charge. He keeps thinking, but really, he's the
Oh,
guest,
no,
right?
Yeah, I'm a guest. Yeah.
So I'm going to
Debra has
ask
some
questions, and y'all are going to answer questions just like normal.
Yeah.
So let's start.
Just admit it, Bear. Deborah's always in charge.
Oh yeah,
Just admit it.
I have no illusions.
Oh,
I have
he's
no
learned that a
illusions.
long time ago.
Yeah.
All right, so let's start out with y'all both have been teaching photography now for several years.
Yes.
And obviously both of you have been photographers for several years. What is the first thing you tell students when they come to y'all's classrooms about photography? So let's start with the beginners. So the people that come to y'all's beginning classes, what are some of the first things you tell them? David?
Well, actually, the first thing I do is show them a bunch of images that are beautiful, gorgeous, and then tell them they were all taken with a cell phone.
There you go.
Great photography isn't necessarily about the gear. It's about what's in front of you and how to capture it. So that's something I would say.
Okay.
Yeah, that's exactly right. The content of the photograph, the composition, and the lighting are the things that are important, and you can capture that with anything.
So definitely, whoops.
Oh,
what's
hold
going
on, David. We got a little bit of a weirdness going on here. Let's see. Are you still there?
I'm here.
All right. We've got typical campground Wi-Fi going on here, so we lost your connection for a second. Hopefully everyone's still on board here. Okay. So yeah, those things are the critical things in photography, and you can with a camera phone or whatever instrument that'll take a picture. You can utilize those things.
And I think that's really an important point, because I think that a lot of folks these days, everybody's a photographer these days, because everybody has a phone in their hand and everybody has a camera. So so truly they can take awesome pictures no matter whether they have just that camera phone or they go out and buy the big fancy Nikon, Canon, whatever it is that they decide that they want, correct?
That's right.
Yeah, there's three. In the course that we're putting together on Intro to Photography, there's a section I call the 3 C's of great photography, and it's composition, content, and creativity. And composition is the easiest first step to really creating a good image that people are going to look at and go, wow, that really looks nice. Content is more along the lines of you happen to be at the right spot at the right time to capture something, and the composition is less important than the what's happening in front of the camera. And then creativity gets with including motion and things of that nature. And so we go into that in more detail in our Intro to Photography course, but we start with composition. That's the first step that someone can make, regardless of the gear they've got, to create a good image.
So talk to me about composition. What's the most important thing to remember when you're talking about composition?
I went to a workshop with a very well-known instructor, and one of the things that he talked about was filling the frame, and we talked to our students about making sure that what's ever in that frame has a reason for being there, making sure you're aware of what you're doing, being aware of what you're capturing, and just seeing the photo. A lot of people will walk up to a scene, they'll just throw the camera up, take a picture, and then move on. take a little bit of time and think about what you're doing and what you're trying to capture, what you're trying to say with that photograph.
So, David, when he says fill the frame, I mean, I can fill the frame with a bunch of cement and sky. So what does he mean by fill the frame?
Basically, from my interpretation of this, is the frame can have a lot of different elements in it. But if you have something in there that doesn't belong, or that the image would be better without it, that's the kind of things. I'll give you a great example, too, is that you take a picture of a person and you look at the person's face and you're like, what a great image. Oh, it's so cool. And then you realize, well, there's a tree growing out of the side of their head. So that's also another thing about being aware of what's in front of the camera and it took me a while to learn to do this, especially shooting outdoors, trying to shoot portraits and stuff, as I was so focused on the subject, I didn't think about what else was in the frame.
Yep.
And it's important to look beyond whatever the key element is. Another is to something, and like a small flower or something, and just fill the frame with this small flower. So different meanings maybe, but same approaches. Understand what's going to be in the picture when you take it.
Yep.
Yeah, and I think when I use my phone, my camera phone with that, I mean, it really is that a matter of making the image larger. The thing that I'm actually trying to focus on, getting closer to it or enlarging it if I can't get closer to it. Like the other day, we found some bison and I took pictures of the bison. I wasn't going to get a whole lot closer to that bison, but could absolutely zoom in on him to that, even with my camera phone, and get a pretty decent picture of his face.
Yep.
So, what other advice do you have for fill the frame?
Well, I think going beyond that, then you start getting into compositional techniques. And one of the things that David and I talk about most often is just start with the basics. Rule of thirds is the most basic compositional technique, and we've got some samples we can show here in a minute. But rule of thirds is one of the most basic compositional techniques, and it's really just dividing the frame up into thirds and putting something of interest on one or more of those thirds. And we'll demonstrate that here in a minute. But then you've got other compositional techniques, David. I know you're a fantastic user of leading lines and framing, and those are two really popular, easy to understand and adopt compositional techniques.
Yeah, an image that someone looks at, and there's one item, and you look at it, and it's pretty, it's whatever it is. You see it, and you've moved on. Images that kind of stick with people, and that they remember and go, "Oh wow, look, this was cool," are images that cause them to stop. And you use leading lines, or framing, or rule of thirds, or depth of field, or any number of compositional tools to get someone to stop and have their eye wander around the image, but always continually circle back to that focal point, whatever that focal point was that you determined that you wanted to be the star of the image. But you want to include enough other elements that they're not just see it and move on. Instead, they want to continue to explore because of the leading lines, which don't necessarily lead directly to the object. As a matter of fact, more powerful leading lines are ones that spiral into the primary subject matter. Framing is good, especially if you include a framed subject that is a primary interest. And next to that, maybe there's something else of interest, something of a contrasting color or something along those lines, so that the viewer is continually kind of flipping back and forth between that they're drawn to that primary subject, but this is also somewhat interesting, so they have to look at it. Yeah. You also accomplish that with depth of field, where you have a flower arrangement or something in the front of the frame up close to the viewer that's very beautiful, but you have these majestic mountains in the background that are also in focus. And so you tend to kind of, tend to want to flip back and forth between those.
Yeah. Yeah.
So why don't we show some pictures? Because I think I think these are all great ideas, but unless people see examples, I don't know that it's always easy to understand what we're talking about. So let's start with the rule of thirds.
Okay. So, David, right now we have, let's see, I don't know if I can get you.
Is this your Acadia?
Yes.
Yeah. So we've got the Acadia Lighthouse on here. Yeah. The rule of thirds, like I had mentioned, is breaking up that frame into thirds. So the top third, that lighthouse
So
is
thirds
placed
by horizontal.
horizontal and vertical.
Right.
And then, and I just refer to where those points intersect. I just refer to that as a power point. So if you can put an object on that point, it just makes it a little bit stronger. But it just gives you some sort of visual way to put the photo, to compose the photo, literally, and it makes it more dynamic than if you had put that lighthouse right in the middle of the frame.
So in this case, the lighthouse is in the upper middle, really, but it's right on the line. So that's called a thirds.
That's the thirds, yeah. It's
So-
near that top third.
And then the fact that the reflection of it is in the bottom third
Yeah.
kind of is a nice balance.
It's a bonus. Yeah, it's a nice balance to it. Reflections always create some nice balance, often because it's top and then that reflection down at the bottom. So then you get into this, another compositional technique called balance, which we do have an example of one of David's beautiful images on balance. So that's an example of rule of thirds. Now this is a little more subtle idea of rule of thirds, but this is a beautiful shot, David, you took of a bird,
Blue jay.
Blue jay. So the blue jay's head is near the top
It was
left.
snowing.
Yeah.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah, should be a
Top left, and I don't think you have the rule of thirds laid out on there, but essentially his head is there, and I've cropped this image to be square, but still following essentially that same rule of thirds. Another element that's being used here is the shallow depth of field, so that you're focused in on the head of the blue jay. So the head of the blue jay is at the rule of thirds, at that power point is very positive. But then you have the rest of the image is slightly out of focus. So again, it brings you back to that. But you have also this branch in the foreground that's leading you through the image out around where rule of thirds, depth of field, all of those elements. But so rule of thirds applies not just to a landscape image, but any size or shape that you do it, you have that similar kind of concept of wherever those crosses are, those are powers. I like.
Yeah. We lost you there for a minute. Hopefully we still got you. But the rule of thirds, when I'm talking to someone that's just beginning, it doesn't matter if they do landscapes or not. It's a good thing to think about regardless of what kind of photography you're doing. And it's not
Any kind.
Yeah, you don't have to necessarily apply it to every photo, but it's one of the first things you should think about is, will that help this photo? And there are times to break that rule, of course, many times to break it. The next one's from our workshop out at Fort Griffin State Historic Site. It's the one where the grass in the foreground is in focus and the old barracks is out of focus with the sun behind it. So yeah, a beautifully composed photo with the barracks up near that top left third. Just another demonstration of that. Also using depth of field to catch that beautiful golden grass. So to emphasize that with the barracks out of focus.
So what happened?
You've got the shadow lines. The shadow lines are leading also into that same spot. So the other element that's in this that people maybe don't think about, but if you go back to elementary school, learning the color wheel is color contrast, and a compositional element is contrast in colors. So the blue with the gold or yellow in terms of opposites also add an element to it. So
yeah, it's beautiful. All right, let's see. We're getting some buffering.
Yep.
Okay.
We are buffering. Sadly, we are buffering. Every now and then it jumps up and it gets us right back where we were.
It might be better for you not to be on the iPad, so you're not taking up more Wi-Fi bandwidth, and let's see if we can fight through it. This is another vote for campgrounds getting better Wi-Fi right here, folks.
yeah.
All right, the next photo that we have. Okay, rule of thirds. We've got the pelican.
Yeah.
Top right. So the neat thing about this, as far as rule of thirds goes, you've got the horizon where the water meets the island back there, or the whatever's back
Shoreline.
there, the shoreline. that's near a third. You've got the pelican flying through the top third. And this is a really subtle thing. You've given the pelican room to fly into the image. In other words, that pelican's on that top right third, and you have some empty space or negative space, some people call it, off to the bird's left that gives room for that bird to fly into. And a lot of people overlook that, but it gives a little bit more dynamic energy to the photograph to have that bird flying into something as opposed to just putting that bird smack dab in the middle of the frame.
And I've heard both of y'all say this before. So say you cut off the picture at where that first line is. If the picture was cut off there, he would have barely any room for such powerful big wings, and it would feel very confined, as opposed to, because of that, what you called negative space. Basically, he has room to be flying across the picture. It makes it have a more fluid and a more moving kind of feel to the picture. And I think that people do this a lot also with other people. They have a tendency that if a person is looking off to the right, that maybe they cut them off too much at the right. And you want to give some room to the direction that the object of the picture is looking towards.
Yeah.
Right?
Yep. For the most part, absolutely. Excellent. There are times to break that rule, but yeah, this is a great example of following that particular rule, so to speak.
So let me add something here too about that. Generally speaking, anytime something is moving, you're going to want to have more space in front of whatever's moving than behind it. An exception is going to be an object that's moving, that's leaving evidence of its motion. An idea or example is a boat on the water. You want to have the boat, in this case, over to the left with the trail behind it, because that trail is what gives it the sense of motion. Otherwise, it might be sitting in one spot. With a bird, you just assume it's moving through the air, right? Yeah. So another example would be a car. If you're photographing it at night and you're getting taillights or something like that, you're going to want the lights to be taking up more of the image, and the car can be closer to the edge. But ideally, if you've got something that's moving, you want more empty space in front of the object that's moving.
Yeah, excellent. Excellent point. All right, let's see. What's the next photo? Oh, this is one of my favorites of yours. This is from our Arkansas Fall Workshop. It's the beautiful water. So the water's acting like a leading line in this case that takes you through the image up into the beautiful color and the cliffs back there. It's just a gorgeous image.
So in this picture, the water is actually in the middle third. But to your point, it's a leading line, so it's drawing the eye up and into the photograph.
Yeah, this really, leading the rule of thirds is just one of the rules, and here, it doesn't necessarily apply. It's really all about balance with the color on either side, and then you've got the cliffs back there in the middle, and the water leading all up into the whole scene.
And also the other reason this picture works so well is because of the texture of the rocks. Just adds some nice depth to the picture. The one question that I know a lot of people ask is, in this case, David, the water has a very smooth look to it. So how is it that y'all do that with the smooth look of water? I know that's a question a lot of people ask.
Well, you're going to need to take a longer exposure, and this is a case where a cell phone, now there are apps and even the newer cell phones sometimes allow you to do long exposure stuff. I was set up on a tripod, and this was probably a half a second exposure, maybe a second, something like that. Typically you're going to want to use a tripod, but again, I'm a big fan of using rocks and tree stumps or anything to set your camera on if you don't have access to a tripod. Sometimes they're a lot to tote around. Another point I'll make about this image too is that you'll notice that the water is a leading line. And as I said, it doesn't need to go straight to anything of particular importance, but lines that wind through the image are very attractive to people. People are drawn to that. It's like a road, you just want to follow it. But I will say that if you notice in the background on that cliff wall is a very dark spot, and I left that to be dark as a point of interest, so that the water was leading kind of to something. In truth, in fact, the water was coming down that cliff face there, and that made that darker, but you couldn't really see the water. But yeah, this is upstream from Six Fingers Falls, but every time I've been there, other than this time, the water was moving so high that getting to this point would be almost impossible. To get to this point, I had to wade upstream in about probably 18 inches of water for about, maybe 100 yards to get to the point to where I could shoot this shot. But it was a beautiful location, and I didn't want to leave.
All right, so two things to that. One, that's just a good reminder that sometimes you have to move in order to get the picture that you want. And I think people tend to think, okay, I'm standing here and I see this wonderful thing and I'm going to just take a picture of it, but it's usually too small. So you really do have to move up closer. Also, the other thought is you need to move the camera around. You need to try different angles on it to get the right angle for it. And then my question for you, Barry, is I know there's some tool that you've suggested people that don't have tripods that they can use to put their cameras on to help keep them steady. What is that?
There are a couple. There are a lot of little toys out there, but there's
lots of toys when you like cameras.
Yeah, lots of toys. We did a workshop in Savannah, Georgia, and one of the things that you do there is there's this beautiful church that we go to. So what I'd recommended to the people coming to that workshop was that they look into something called the platypod, I believe it's called, David. But it's basically a flat metal plate about the size of your hand that has a mount for your camera, but it's something that you can discreetly bring into something like a church where you can't set up a tripod, and you can take that platypod, put your camera on it, put it on the floor or something else, and do a long exposure in a place like that. Now, back to the other point about getting smooth water, David mentioned a cell phone. Yeah, David, hold on to that, David. When we get you back on camera, we'll show people what that platypod looks like.
Okay.
So the thing, what I did a little mini workshop in Alabama, and some of the people there were using cell phones. And so I had a little cell phone mount for a small travel tripod. And the tripod was no bigger than a foot, and then had a little mount for a cell phone. And so I was coaching them on, there's an app called Slow Shutter. And like David said, some of the more advanced cell phones just have it built in. But you can use that app. You really do need to set it on a tripod or somehow stabilize it, because that slow shutter is going to take a quarter of a second, an eighth of a second, 1 second to get that smooth water coming through.
Okay, great. What else?
Oh, let's see. What's next? Another example of leading line. This is, again, going down a forest road, a country road, dirt road that leads into some beautiful woods. Just another example of leading lines. Let's see.
We have lots of examples of leading lines.
Yeah.
There's another one.
This is the really stark. David really worked on this one. Got it really stark and aggressive and dynamic. So this combines leading lines with a little bit of rule of thirds. I've seen where David's cropped this a little bit more and really follows rule of thirds. But that horizon line up there is near that top third, and so just a combination of techniques to. Let's see.
It looks like it's buffering again.
Again?
Yeah. So, but keep going.
Okay.
It'll come on.
So framing, we've got the child. This is literally framing. I mean, the child is framed in the window. But framing can be anything that wraps around the subject or helps draw the subject's attention, or draw the viewer's attention to the subject. So framing is just a way to enhance the photo and bring attention to something. So this is an obvious example of framing with the child in the window. This was something from my Yosemite visit, and I just used the trees on the left and the top to frame the. We're getting some reports of buffering, David, so bear with us here.
Yeah.
Yeah, we're gonna have to fight through it. Let's see. What else do I have here? Balance. Now, we didn't talk much about balance, David. I've got this photo that you took of me I'm on the left side of the frame, the dead trees on the
Right.
right side of the frame. So anything that literally has balance, where there's roughly equal weight on one side of the frame and the other, then that's usually referred to as a balanced composition.
Right. This one was, I mean, you and I were in Big Bend, and we were coming out of exploring some back road, pretty rough road, if I remember right. But
Yep.
this dead mesquite was there, and the branches on it were just gorgeous. We had to stop. There was no question. And then when I was looking at it, and I saw you there, and I just thought, well, this is perfect. We've got a photographer photographing the obvious subject matter, and this is a case of balance, because the tree itself draws the interest because it is beautiful with all those branches and stuff, but then you have this contrasting orange person. And by the way, a person in a landscape image is always going to draw attention. We are naturally drawn to look at people in an image, no matter what kind of image it is.
Yep.
So this one I've created of balance and some people would say stress, because the viewer's not sure what he's supposed to look at, so that causes them to stop and stay with the image and go back and forth. And the fact that you in the image as the person are looking toward the other item and taking a photograph of it, it just causes the viewer to continually bounce back and forth between these two. So that's balance. You can see it in a lot of different commercial or high-end images. They use balance a lot in there, where they've got a subject that's obviously the primary deal or focus, the product, whatever it is, but then they also have something else in the frame that causes you to want to go there. But that item, whatever it is in the frame, it causes you to go back to the product. And so they get you stuck on the image, and then they get you continually going back to that primary product or subject of interest.
Yep. All right, let's see what we have next. This is an example of I call it balance, but it's also symmetry. It's the beautiful shot against a lake of some trees that are either morning sun or evening sun.
Yeah.
So
This was in Norway right after a storm. I actually took this from a moving car.
Oh my gosh. You got
Yeah,
lucky.
it was fun. I've done some editing, to be fair. I've done some editing on the bottom because there was a guardrail right across the bottom edge of it. So, okay. I'm seeing the offering comments too.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a reflection, balance, symmetry, all of those.
Yeah, Johnny Lighting's giving us some advice to dumb the thing down, but that would be great advice if I knew how to do it, Johnny. So we're going to have to fight through it. Now, the last one I just wanted to throw up there because this is a great example of what David does. So, if you're in Venice, you might walk along, you see the gondolas, and you think, okay, that's a cool picture. He took it. Actually, this is a little underexposed. I'm surprised you underexposed it so badly, but we'll set that aside. But this is an example of a snapshot that David took walking by, but then he said, well, I could do better. So he set up his tripod, put a filter on his camera, and did a really long exposure of the image, and then of course worked on it in Lightroom and Photoshop afterwards and created a beautiful piece of art that really brought out the boats as well as the background and the sky, and just a lovely image.
So that would be another question then also, if you want to get rid of those pictures so that maybe the buffering gets better.
Yeah.
But David and Barry, from a perspective of, I know both of you take thousands of pictures. So one, where is it that you store them and how? And then two, to that particular picture, I know, David, you did do some work on it. What do y'all find to be the best programs to do post work?
So I'll start and then hand it off to David. So we recommend, and we do a course down near Dallas on Lightroom and Photoshop. So Lightroom is a great tool for organization as well as doing, I do 90% of my process in Lightroom. but it is it's an Adobe product, so it has a great relationship with Photoshop, and you can bring the images into Photoshop, and that's what David does a lot of, a lot more than I do. So Lightroom is a great catalog and organization and processing, and then Photoshop to finish things off if you really want to get into it. David, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I'm like you. I use Photoshop to get rid of power lines and stuff like that. To me, it's more about structurally changing or editing an image is Photoshop. Lightroom is about, to me, is like the finishing touches, it's the icing on the cake, so to speak. I adjust my color, and all of that stuff takes place in Photoshop. That being said, when I do take a lot of images where the intent is to produce it in such a way that I could print it 10 feet by 4 feet if I wanted to, which is a very large image and requires a whole lot of images stitched together. If you're going to try to do big panoramas, which no one's really going to hang in their RV, if you're going to do that, though, you're going to probably need to become more familiar with Photoshop and how to blend things and do some adjustments to the visual stuff of it. And we talk a little bit about notes and stuff like that in our workshops, or some of them at least.
Yeah, the
on
beginning
the storage
photographer.
thing.
Go ahead. Sorry.
Go ahead.
Oh, I was just going to say the beginning photographer.
No, go ahead, Barry.
The beginning photographer really should start with Lightroom, get to know it, and then as they progress in their art form, then move into Photoshop.
And then let's assume that the beginner person is really using their camera phone more than using a camera, DSL or whatever camera. So what are some software packages? You mentioned one, Slow Shutter. So what are some other apps that y'all think really helps the iPhone / smartphone, camera phone person take better pictures or have better pictures at the end of some processing?
My thought on that is the cameras, the phones themselves are great at capturing the images. If you want to take the next level and stay with your camera phone, then look into a product like Snapseed. Snapseed. Snapseed's a good, just really basic photo processing piece of software that allows you to do fun things like put filters on the photos. It allows you to make adjustments. It's like a tiny little Lightroom from that perspective. It will allow you to make some adjustments to the image, put frames around them, do all kinds of stuff. That's really the only product I'm familiar with in that market. David, do you have any thoughts on it?
Well, I mean, if you get Adobe Lightroom, you get the CC version, which you can load on your iPad or your phone or whatever. And the thing I like about it is that it's so similar to the desktop version in terms of the way the tools work, that I think it's a good handoff. And I think it's $10 a month for a subscription to Lightroom, Photoshop, and the CC on the phone and the iPad and stuff. So, and the biggest strength it used to be the biggest strength of Lightroom is just the cataloging and the organization, but they continually upgrade it to add new features. So I highly recommend it.
Yeah, and even I can tell y'all that I get into Lightroom from time to time as well, mostly to grab Barry's pictures, and it has some great tagging and cataloging so that then it's easier to find, because when you have 10,000 pictures and you're looking for the one that you took at this particular place, it's rather difficult to find it unless you've done some tagging and cataloging on it. Yep. And those of us in RVs are out there taking lots of pictures, I'm sure. So, okay, so we have a few minutes left. We're going to play a little game.
Okay.
If you would bring up my game, please.
All right.
I have some photos, and David, when you can look at them on your, are you buffering at home, or are you can you see on the camera? Can you see?
I can see you guys live, I guess.
Yes, but when looking at your iPad, can you see any images that we're bringing up, or is it buffering?
Oh, it's buffering. It's showing the one that I took in Norway right now.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you're pretty far behind, so we might not be able to play this game.
Yeah, might not be it, but yeah, all we could do is play. We could talk through what these are as far as I know, and then when we bring up one of his images, we could tell him what it is.
Okay.
Well, we can give it a
Well,
shot.
we'll see. It's
Let's
mostly
give
about
it a shot.
Whitney. Well, first, mostly it's about I know y'all don't know this one, but where was this picture taken is basically the game. So some of y'all's images and to find where it was taken or something about what is it. So this image in particular is a shot of a room with parquet. How do you say that floor?
Parquet
floor.
floors, yeah.
So curious to see if you know where that was taken.
It looks a lot like the lobby of the train depot we were in just the other day.
It is.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And actually, this is my picture. I took it with my cell phone, and I was going to ask y'all, from a perspective of the image, how would you have done this image better?
Well, it's a nice snapshot of a room. I think the thing I want to see is what's your subject? What is your, usually there needs to be some sort of primary subject or something that's going to draw the viewer in. Like I might have moved and gotten a little bit more. There's some really cool chandeliers. I might have gotten a little bit more of that, maybe had that as the focal point with the rest of the room going out of focus behind it, something like that.
Great. Okay. All right.
So here's something I'll add. I can't even see the image, but just when you're taking images of like floors and stuff that's very interesting looking, get down close to them. And sometimes you'll get reflections further away, but up front you have the details of what's going on the floor, and it can give you a cool look.
Cool.
Yep. That's a great idea. And I've also, not that you would ever do this, but go lay on your back underneath that lamp and shoot up into that lamp.
Could have done it.
And
Oh,
it's a really
yeah.
fun looking composition. But then, you can't do it in a busy room because people will walk all over you.
Well, clearly that wasn't a very busy room. You can go on to the next one. Okay.
Oh, okay.
This was a question of what is this? Part of the picture's missing,
So it's half a picture. I know what it is, but part of the picture, David, is looks like a bunch of netting tied to a bunch of tubes, a tube that's going straight vertical, and the netting's coming up at an angle to it. I know this is downtown Dallas.
Yes. It is. You're right. So, and really, like I said, this might be too difficult to play without David seeing.
The Margaret Hunt Hill
Bridge. But very cool image, black and white image.
Oh,
but
okay.
again, very nice with the way y'all framed it. I think this is David's picture.
Yeah.
Framed it, and definitely follows rule of thirds with the pillars sort of being in the middle. So I would say, let's see. Yes. It is the fountain. And I thought that was kind of funny because those of you that watch us often, and usually when we're in our rig, behind us, usually.
That's right.
To let people
one
have a
version of
see,
that image.
let anybody watching have seen if they had noticed what it was. And then, hard to do right now, but I also thought this was an interesting thing. So this is who took this picture, whether it's a David or Barry's image. And for those of you that have been listening, you would have a pretty good clue as to whose is whose. But again, it's essentially the same image in Venice, Italy.
Yep.
That y'all took. Barry towards the I think that's the bridge's size, or just one of the bridges, and then David down a canal. And I think what's interesting here is it's both at night. Barry has people in it and kind of showing the vibrancy of the city. David has it where it's quite quiet. I don't know if you took this after dark, David, but after people had gone off to sleep or early in the morning.
If it's the one I'm thinking about, is there a building with two canals going around either side of it?
No, it's buildings on either side with a canal going straight down the middle.
Or is it just looking down one canal?
One canal, sort of vertical composition, long exposure. Can you hear me? No.
Yeah, I'm showing it to you.
You're buffering.
You buffered. I don't know what's going on. Yeah, we've got serious buffering issues. Well, it'll show up in a minute. All right. Well, David, thanks so much for coming on. Really do appreciate it.
Thanks
Sorry for the technical issues.
Yeah, I've got it here.
There it is.
Oh,
we see it.
there it is. Yay. All right. All right, David, tell, besides bentondowns.com, which is our workshop website. Tell people where they can go to find out about your work.
Oh, well, yeah, daviddowns.com. And I've got, it's more of a personal website that I've created, not so much about selling anything, although you can buy images. It references back to bentondowns.com for education purposes, and I have a blog there, and I do post and include images, and I have several galleries from different places, and I'm continuing to add stuff to it. So anyway, go check it out. If you want to see more images, now I'm seeing some of the Italy stuff popping up.
Johnny just told us that he saw the bridge, so so it's people are getting there.
Yeah.
It's just
It's
taking a while.
Well, thanks for having me, and Barry, buddy, I can't wait to see you again. I guess hopefully it'll be in July.
Yeah. Fingers crossed
and
that
then,
we get to have the workshops in July and August.
Yep.
Yep. I'm hoping so. So thanks, guys.
All right, David. Take
Tell
care.
Chris we said hi.
Yeah, tell Chris we said
I
hi.
shall.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Wow. Okay, so...
Oh, sorry about that, Joanne. You were the one that guessed that it was a bridge. Sorry about that. So that was a bummer that it buffered so much. We
sorry
thought
about that,
moving here
gang.
into the office it would really help it.
Yeah, we're going to have to go back to the laundry room.
Yeah, I guess so. Next week we're not sure who we're going to have on. It might be just the two of us
I think
getting
it
caught
probably,
up.
it might just be that.
Yeah, it might be easier that way. We might do some tapes.
The short show. And
And get caught up on some of the things that we've shown in the past. And certainly if anybody has questions, they can send them to us and we can get them answered.
Yep, that's right. We did get some people. Debra put out a post on the Virtual Campgrounds Facebook page, right, about what topics you'd like to see.
Yeah, we had some great
We had
topics.
some great people, great topics suggested. So if you do have some ideas about what you'd like to see us interview, who you'd like to see us interview.
What?
Yeah,
About what?
About
and
what or who.
Any ideas of who?
And next week we're going to give away the tire pressure
That's
monitoring
right.
system.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So if you haven't heard about that, go to Techno RV and you can sign
go
up.
to our
Well, we have a specific link, so you have to go to our Facebook page to find it.
It's on our Facebook page. It's on our Instagram. It's several places that you can find it and sign up through that link so that you can enter to win